Hello, everyone.
G'day, mate.
Oh, good. Thank you. Often you get a bit like, oh, thank you. Welcome to the third edition of BrisPHP for 2024. We are here today thanks to our sponsors, foundU, the location and the drinks. Credit Sense for the pizzas that are about to come, and Procure Pro just for us, just for our presence. Thanks, everyone. It's a good deal, but it's not really worth following us on socials. We don't use Twitter anyway. I think that's dead now anyway.
I posted once today.
Really?
This is the first time we hear.
Single-handedly bringing it back, baby.
The one main note to call out is we're no longer, or we're pivoting off Meetup onto Humanitics. Is that the one we decided on?
Yeah, I would love feedback on how you guys found the new platform.
It was fine.
I signed up.
I think I threw me up every time.
Yeah, that's the problem. I looked at a bunch of ones and nothing really has the discoverability of Meetup, but they doubled our fee without telling us and then charged my card, and that just pissed me off.
For future reference, to find the events, if you go to BrisPHP.com, that will take you to, who pays that to me?
I think me.
Oh, thank you. Just thought of that. I haven't seen that. There's a link that goes to Humanitics now, which is I find it easier than trying to remember the URL for that. So yeah, stay tuned on that. I think there's subscribe with our emails and stuff, so you can subscribe to the next one.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
Follow our host page, and then I'll see your emails from joining the event. So make sure that I'll send an email to everyone for the next events and stuff.
Yeah, just one question to do with the meetup. Are we going to cancel that group completely, or just not hosting any events on that? How the charging structure is?
The meetup page.
Yeah, meetup page.
It'll get cancelled. So then it will probably start emailing everyone saying there's no organizer for the event. You want to take it over and all sort of shit. But
So that's your chance.
that's your chance. If you want to take it over and pay $100 a meetup,
You're open source fashion, you're forking the Meetup and creating your own.
it's $100 USD a meetup or something. Because we host them so infrequently, and then they just jack their prices up. Ridiculous. So.
What if we don't have any meetups? Just to keep the group. Will that be to keep the exposures of us still?
Yeah, you pay for the group.
Oh, still
Not for the meetup. And that's why it's so expensive, because we only host 3 or 4 meetups a year, and they're targeting it against people that host a meetup every week, and then it probably checks out.
The alternative suggestion was they wanted to charge everyone $1 entry for 3 meetups, and you pay online and stuff. And I think the community is piss off. That's not going to work.
How much is the fee? Just show up and I'll pay you.
It's like $300 USD every 6 months.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because they claim they're going to be rolling out some really cool, great new AI stuff. And they said you have to pay so they can afford to make that change. So you have to pay before they actually roll out the new features.
Even
as they promise will come.
Yeah. Even as an audience member, even as an audience member, you can't actually see who's going to the event either. You used to be able to click people and stalk them, but now it's no longer possible.
Yeah, I want something stalker friendly.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, tonight we have, as per usual, we didn't have it last time. So back to our usual program.
No, I've already been told off about that.
Yeah. Good. Next, what's new on PHP talk? Summarizing perhaps Sam. Right, there you are.
Alright.
It's going to be
finishing your talk off? Maybe.
turning NoSQL into YesQL. Sounds I love a good name. And Josh, I was I see a couple newish faces, and I was probably one of them. Event sourcing with verbs, which is fun. Do we have giveaways?
Yes, I have 3 JetBrains vouchers to give away.
Well, I haven't organized that.
Go to BrisPHP.com/pizza and
we'll sort it out retrospectively based on the Google Form entry.
Get 12 months free of the JetBrains IDE.
That's pretty good.
How many of you are already getting such a thing free through work? Okay.
Well, you can save work a year's worth as well, because you can apply it to your work subscription if you want.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But why would you? Cool.
I'm a partner.
Thanks, Nathan.
All right. Yes, I'm up.
The student to get it. Student gets it free. I'm just
Check that no one's waiting.
for the personal
Yeah.
Because I don't check. Yeah.
All right. So, what is the haps in PHP in the last, I guess, 6 months now, since it's been a while since I did this talk? Most exciting thing is 8.4 is released in 21 days and 15 hours. That's coming out pretty soon. I don't actually know the hour that it's being released, just FYI. I just chose 10 a.m. So it's midnight UTC time, but somewhere in the next 21 days it'll be released. I've talked quite a lot in previous meetups about like the new features coming up in 8.4. So there's a couple of newer ones that have come out since the last talk that I haven't gone over. A couple of small ones and then a couple of big ones coming up as well.
Extra.
A really small one is you get to remove these little parentheses if you want to like chain methods on your new tools, which then just saves a couple of clicks, makes it look a bit tidier as well. There was a big debate about this one, right? About like the order of operations. I use the new applied before like the brackets at the end of the thing, and what happens if there's no brackets? It's a whole thing. But at the end of the day, it gets a little bit tidier.
Oh, the instantiation of the class that have brackets. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if the
Right.
instantiation, because you can say like new request and not have brackets, and that's still valid as well. That was the whole thing. I think it went through multiple iterations before they eventually agreed on it, but we got there. Another small one is a few new array functions as well. So you've got array find, array any, and array all are really common ones that I know I always implement, like a helper function that does those things. So just to find the first element in the array that returns true for some callback function. And then array any is like if any element in the array, you get a true. For array all is like every single element has to return true for this function. So you can put an array of emails, you can validate that they're all valid emails really easily. And then array find key is an interesting one where it will return the key of the item
First
instead of the value. Yeah.
of the first. So all of these are designed for performance. This is the only reason it got through the vote, is because it is optimized underneath the hood to return early, which if you would use array filter, array map, or all those things, they traverse the entire payload. So the only reason these got in, because they seem extremely verbose to add to the language. And that you often hear, oh, PHP doesn't want to have everything and the kitchen sink in its function.
It already has that,
But it does. And then they do this. And the only justification was that it returns early. So it is helpful. And that's why you make the helper functions for performance, but now you don't have to anymore.
Yeah. The interesting thing to note here is the callback function that you pass in takes two parameters. The first parameter is the value, and the second parameter is the key. So if you don't care about the key, if all you want to do is operate on the value, you can just not pass that in, and that does PHP things and just goes into a boolean. But if you do care about both the key and the value in your comparison function, then you can use both of them.
And what's annoying about having two parameters is that if you're passing in something that only needs one, you can't do the first class callable, or you can't do just the string name of the callback. You actually have to do fn, just the one parameter that you need, and then do that like array function, arrow function. So this is my complaint with PHP, is that if you don't give enough of the parameters to match the signature in the callback, then it breaks and said you didn't give us enough parameters or too many or whatever.
I didn't know that.
It's annoying, but still, this is a nice add.
Fair enough. Hands up, has anyone used BC Math before? Okay. You find it
And
useful?
everybody used them in some libraries, like PHP or something.
Yeah, right. But you never use it directly.
No, not directly, yeah.
Yeah.
Direct use.
But yeah, BC Math is an extension just to do like arbitrary precision, like maths on floating point numbers. So up here, you've got like BC add. If you're adding like floating point numbers together, by default, it takes like a global INI setting, and just like if you set that to 0 precision or zero, I forget what it's called, scale, then it won't have any decimal points, or you can like put in how many decimal points you care about, and BC Math will kind of figure that out for you. But this has always been like procedural style with these like functions that aren't like object oriented. So now we're getting kind of objects that you can work around. So you can have like a number class that you can either add together like this, or you can call an add function as well. So it's literally the same thing, just with object-oriented style, which then makes some things a little bit easier. This one was an interesting one that I went down a bit of a rabbit hole last night. In that the exit function, when you like exit a script, is not actually a function. It's like a language construct that was created a very long time ago and doesn't actually behave like functions do. For example, it doesn't support named arguments. I don't know why you'd pass named arguments to exit anyway, but you can't pass a callable into it. It doesn't respect strict types, and it does weird things with type juggling. So like you're only meant to pass an integer into it because it's meant to be like the return value of your process. But if you pass anything that's not an integer, it just casts it to a string regardless, like which is
To a string.
Yeah. If you kill a script and you say why you killed it,
It's like you must give me an integer, but if you give me something else,
I'm going to make it a string.
fuck you, it's a string.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's exactly what it does.
And it doesn't need parentheses. So you can just write exit and then your string or the integer.
Yeah,
So it's a weird thing.
it is really weird.
I'll let you, sorry.
But like, for example, you might pass like exit true, and you might expect that like returns an exit code of 1, but it doesn't. It returns an exit code of the string true. So
How does it work in a process?
I don't know. I don't use the exit function.
Is this actually compliant with the what's called Unix style return and return codes application?
I'm not sure.
Probably only integers are allowed to be returning codes for
But if
some application.
this one casts it to string, then
Yeah, it casts anything to a string. Regardless, whereas now they've changed it so that it will do type juggling like a normal function, and it will respect strict types as well. So if you have this strict type declaration at the top of your PHP file and you pass in a string, I think it'll complain. If you pass in a bool, it'll definitely complain. Because you can't really pass the bool to a string.
And this does differ from die. So now where they used to be synonymous, now they're no longer synonymous.
Oh, I assume that it die as well. So now die is,
Die has been left untouched. Exit is changed.
okay.
Sort of like Laravel's join and implode.
Maybe you should be doing the what's new in PHP.
No.
For this whole business.
It's good. You're doing a great job.
get a backseat drive.
Yeah. All right. Lazy objects is another one that's come up, which is interesting. I was struggling to find like a real use case for it in like userland code, but under the hood in like Doctrine and Symfony, they do a lot of like lazy stuff, and they have like hundreds of lines of really complicated code to be able to like create an object without initializing it and then like initialize it on the fly. And lazy objects allow them to like clean that up. So there's pull requests in for Symfony and Doctrine that delete like hundreds and hundreds of lines of like really, really terrible code. But the idea here being like, if you have a blog like entity in your database and you know its ID, but you don't necessarily want to do a database call to get it as of yet, but you want to do one like maybe when you do need the title, the content of the blog, you can do the database call at that point. So you wrap that up in a function here that retrieves the title and content from the database, and then you can instantiate this like lazy ghost type object. So now your post is like, for all instances, a blog post, and you can pass it around into functions like it's a blog post. And then the first time someone calls get title or accesses the title property, it will then go off, do a database call, and come back, which is exactly the way like Doctrine works under the hood already, but they just have a lot of magic to make that work. And then you've got this cheeky hack around as well. So because you already know the ID, you can like force set that on your blog so that if you call the ID property or get ID, it won't do the database initialization. It'll only do it when you get properties that you don't know about yet, which is pretty interesting. There's, funnily enough, 2 types of lazy objects you can have. There's a ghost, which is like what you think about when you think about a lazy object. Like I now have this object I can pass around and it's a blog post for all intents and purposes. And then as soon as it's initialized, it's exactly the same as a blog post. Like it doesn't even have any like magic stuff. Whereas in Doctrine, if you look in your call stack, you'll see that it's like a proxy object or something like that. But then there's another one which is called a lazy proxy, and I still don't really understand what the reason for it is, but it kind of like sits the instantiation logic off to the side. So your object proxies all the calls and the properties through to your underlying object, but it doesn't pass up instance objects or anything. So I don't really know why we want to do that, but I'm sure there's a reason. Now we get into the fun stuff. Property hooks. So imagine in your PHP less than 8.4 code, you have an object that looks like this. You've got a user, you've got a name, the first name and the last name, and you kind of access them just as properties. That's really cool. But then you want to add in some sort of validation logic. Like you shouldn't be able to set last name to empty because that doesn't make any sense. Everyone should have a last name, right? Unless you're from a non-English speaking country than me. But we're not worried about those guys. So then previously what you would have to do is like add in like a set last name method and make the last name property private. But now you can have like, this is like an interesting way of doing it, but you get like you define your setter against your property. So now as soon as you trying to overwrite the property of last name down the bottom here, it actually calls this function, and you can throw value errors or do whatever you want inside this setter here.
So you lose property promotion then?
You don't. So you can put this inside your constructor if you want. The RFC says we don't block it, but like you probably need to stick if you do it for some use cases. Like this one, for example, would look terrible if you put it in your constructor, but you can have the like short arrow functions as well in here, and then it would only be like one line, and then putting it in the constructor doesn't look that bad. For example, I'll get to that in a sec, but another use case for it is like virtual properties. So you want to have a full name property on your user. Previously, you would have to have like a getter and a setter so that you can get the full name like this and it joins them together, or you could set the full name and it would like explode them and keep the properties that way. But with property hooks, you can define a property with a getter and setter like this, so that when you access the full name property, it just calls this method and does that for you. So your API of your object is the same, whether you access first name or full name, they're still just, from the user's perspective or from the consumer's perspective, it's still just a property. And same with the setter. When you set that property, it'll call this setter up here. And here you can see the difference if you have the short function where you use an arrow function, just a single line, it's a lot simpler, or you can have like a full method body with the curly braces and stuff. With the setter, the value that is set to is just bound to the parameter value, just magically. That's optional though. You can put like little parentheses after set and then have like whatever variable name you want in there. Or you can just like not have that and it keeps your code shorter, but then value is like magically defined. So it's up to you, whichever way you want.
Do you still have to set the property to the type that's defined? So let's just say a public string full name. Could you say, full name equals an array, but have the setter function transform that to a string?
Yes, but you can't do the short version that way. You have to put the parentheses and define that it takes an array, and then it will work. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and then the other cool bonus that we get out of property hooks is you can now define properties on interfaces, which has been a bit of a bugbear of mine for a while. That you have an interface and you want to make sure some properties exist, but interfaces are not like properties. So you are forced to define like getters and setters everywhere on all of your interfaces. But now you can have an interface that defines like public properties, or you can also have an interface that defines you have to have a public property which is only readable and it can't be set, or a public property that you can only set but you can't read. So it's interesting.
Sorry, is readable, is read-only keyword applied? Can be applied here?
Yes, this line here is practically the same as saying like public read-only first name. I think they're like actually equivalent under the hood. So yeah, and then this one here where you say get and set, that's functionally the same as just defining it as a public string as well. So there's bits and pieces that do the same thing. But that's an interesting kind of side effect of this one, and people have been talking for years about putting properties on interfaces, and finally it just happens as a bit of a byproduct of something else, which is interesting. And then asymmetric visibility. Similarly to this, like if you notice, like this interface is essentially defining like an asymmetric property where like you have to have a public string that's gettable but can't be settable, or doesn't need to be settable. So you could be like private set, but you can also define your visibilities. Like this is an example of previous code.
This looks familiar.
Yeah, I saw it from my code base. This is something that I often do. If I'm doing something where I want to have like two properties on an object that are linked together and you can only set them at the same time. For example, you're running an import. The import has a status and a completed at field. I don't want to be like setting the status and setting completed at as two separate calls. I just want to have a single complete call, which does both of them. So this is like a really common pattern, as Tom recognized, that I use all the time throughout our code base. But you can do that with asymmetric visibility here, where you say it's a public property, but set, like to write it is private. So you're only allowed to write to this property inside this class. So then you no longer need these extra getters because people can just access those properties directly, but they're not allowed to set them. You'll get an error. You can only set them from within inside the class. So
There are
That's really
protected versions of.
yes, you can use protected, you can use public and private. The only caveat is you can't have the read visibility being like wider than the set. So you can't have like private read but public set. Which
So
is
there's a
interesting.
public and then private, then the private becomes set.
Yeah, so it's public, private. You could have protected private, you could have
Public protected.
public protected. I think those are all the options. Yes, and there's also more little syntactic sugar here. If public is your read only, you can just like not put public there, and you just say private set, and that means it's a public read but private set.
Can you be more explicit and go public and then open the bracket and put get? Would it complain?
You mean like this sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah.
work. They work like completely separately. So
Yeah.
Can you go back? Are you saying public bracket get
Yeah.
private set?
Yeah.
no,
No,
the,
you-
the
that's
only
not
keyword
balanced.
I think that exists is the set. Like
Okay, gotcha.
the read, like get is the first keyword, and then
Yeah.
the second keyword has to have set. after
Yeah.
it.
Gotcha.
And then you can also put like your get and set like curly braces on the end of here for the property hooks as well if you choose. So then you don't need to have method like getters and setters like inside the class either.
When you do that and you have a setter, does that thing get called with that default value? If you know how to set, like your set for your import, your status variable there, does that, the dollar value in your set function immediately get called with that import status processing value? Or does it just immediately get set like under the hood to that value?
I am unsure. I think it gets immediately set because if in your setters, if in here, you like here when I'm setting first name and last name, if I defined a setter for first name and last name, then this would skip that. And it would go straight to that, which prevents you getting in like infinite loops of that sort of thing. So like I assume it's the same for this, but maybe not. I don't know. And that's it. Does anybody have any other questions about any of these features I've discussed?
Nick, what else is cool? What are we missed?
That's a previous.
There's just
Right,
there's just a lot of discussion going on in the internals of the amendment I was talking about. Someone complained that there are native functions that modify by reference, like array walk and sorting functions, and they always return true, like the most useless return value. and you can't nest them in a chain of function calls. And he said, look, can we just return the modified array? Because how many times have you written a function called sorted, which sorts the array and passes it back, like a helper function that does that? He said, it's ugly boilerplate that you put a helper in your project and you use it all the time. So he's like, just pass back the passed in array. And so that's all the sorting functions. It's array multi-sort. It's array walk. Is it array walk recursive? I can't remember. I think no. Array walk recursive. Yeah, and that doesn't return anything. So he was saying, look, just pass back the array instead of true, because you can't use it for anything. So we can use it for something else. And people are like, well, but then there will be backward compatible problems where you might have assumed that it was going to return true. So you put some ugly ternary condition after your sort and said, if it's true, which you expected it to be, use this. And then maybe you said the same thing in the false branch of that ternary. And it's just, it makes it sort of unreliable. And so then people started discussing, myself included, in the internals, that maybe we should have other function names to differentiate between something that passes back and something that doesn't. One of the guys said, if we should just put ed on the end of it, like sorted or u sorted or ua sorted, to mean that it passes back. So there's clarity about, they were saying it needs to do what it says on the tin. And so people were arguing about that. And I said, well, why don't we have the array underscore prefix on those sort functions, so that is a differentiation, that if it starts with array underscore, the prefix means you're going to pass it back. But the RFC, the original request, said, continue to modify by reference, just also pass it back instead of true. So it sort of like went way the discussion went way off into the distance. He's like, wait, guys, hold on. I just want to return the affected array and not do anything else. But so it's sort of like in limbo at the moment. But it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But I would love to see something other than true. I hate any method or function call that returns the same true. Like, it's the most useless. It may as well be void because you can't use it for anything.
Like storage put in Laravel. Just give me the path back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to store the path, and then you have to pass that to put, and then you have to go and say that in the database. So just fucking, you know where you put it, so just give it back to me.
Yeah.
And JavaScript has like two sorted. That's how they solve that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, if you call sorted on an array in JavaScript, it does nothing.
Interesting.
I think in the last couple of days, I saw something that was like, someone requested that you're able to pass a callback or anonymous function as a constant, that you could populate the value of a constant from like an anonymous function or a function call.
Statement, essentially.
Yeah. So currently you can't do that. They would like to, whether it's a date call or the current date or something like that, pass that directly and define it as constant. So that's in the works. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, we might leave it there. One more little side note is Tom and I are looking to hire more senior engineers. If anybody is looking for a new job, come and chat to us in the break. We are founders of a construction tech company.
Not hierarchy.
Not hierarchy. This is the previous company that didn't make it. Procure Pro, the one that's on Tom's shirt.
And they win awards all the time.
You
You can't stop them winning awards.
Yeah, we have a pretty complicated B2B app written in Symfony and Aurelia on the front end, but we love test-driven development, static analysis, and all the fun things. So come have a chat with us if you're interested.
What's the round?